Hi, and welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. I'm Chris Lucian, and co-host is Austin Chadwick. And today we're going to be talking to David Hirschfeld about AI, software development, startup, workflow automation. But first, David, before we get started, if you'd like to give a quick introduction, and then we can get into our first topic.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and thanks, Douglas, for having me on. Yeah, I'm founder of a company called Techies. We're a software development company, founded it 18 years ago. And of course, we've seen a lot of changes since then. I've been in the software world, even had my own startup in the 90s that I sold in 2000. So I've been in the software world for a long time. And today, things are changing faster than they've ever changed because of AI and all the workflow automations capabilities that you have.
Nice. Nice. Well, let's jump into it. Yeah, that's you know, just to give a little bit of our context, we use AI in our mob programming and programming process, software development process, and Chris is very passionate on the topic, has some machine learning studies and experience, and so yeah, what are you passionate about with AI? What have you been thinking and noticing?
Well, uh, the ability to very easily pull in disparate information or disparate workflows
Mm.
to create these discrete workflows, and we're all calling them agents these days. I think that term is already starting to maybe even become obsolete because agents kind of imply the ability to do one thing. And I think that the idea of being dynamic, right, is already starting to kind of raise its head where an agent may not be an agent. It just may be this dynamic, amorphous collection of things that just keeps changing and reorganizing themselves. So that's really an early concept, but I think that's kind of where this is all headed, at least headed in the near term, because as soon as I say it's headed, then we're already moving past it and it's headed somewhere else, right?
It's changing very
So,
fast right
yeah.
now. Yeah.
So, and then in particular on the technology side, vision and voice, you combine those two things together and magic happens.
Yeah.
So, these things that I found early on when ChatGPT first came out with their voice and their vision tool, right? When you could hold your phone up and ask it to identify something. We use it for going shopping. Go down the supermarket and I just start walking down the aisle and I say, tell me when you see the Hunt's tomato sauce, because there's these tiny little cans that are buried behind everything. And it says, oh, you should be looking in this for a red can with a white label. Oh, there it is in the bottom shelf on the right. And it's right there. And I don't have to go hunting for it with amongst all these other cans of tomatoes, right?
It's a
So
fantastic use case, actually.
yeah, well, it's funny. I Most people don't even know you can do use that
Mhm.
tool, right? When you're just talking casually about these things. And so it's such an easy thing to demonstrate, and the speed at which it can simplify your life. Like if you're looking for some cough medication in a CVS or Walgreens, yeah, and there's like you spend 5 minutes looking for it because there's so many of them, right? And maybe you want one like this, but you want the generic version. So you just say that to it and you say, tell me when you see it. And it says, oh, there, it's on the second shelf, third, three boxes down. You'll see it's a small green and white box. And I look and it's right there. And I like, don't have to go hunting.
Yeah. Yeah, I am classically terrible at finding things at the store and in the house. So maybe I need to start doing this to,
Right.
not be the bad husband and father when told to go find something. And it's funny, we used it that morning in kind of a more code example where there was a diff between two files. And on appearance, they looked to be the same. And the diff tool was showing us differences, but it was kind of chaotic. And so we're just like, what's really different here and why? And why does it matter? And it was like, oh, well, this is on one page, it's, hiding an element, the other page, it's not, and we
It's
looked
like,
at it for a
oh,
few minutes before
right.
we asked, and we didn't really spot anything, just kind of with our eyeballs.
Hmm.
And it was spot on. And so, yeah, I think
Yeah.
computers are sometimes more, better at finding fine grained details like that. At least
And
better than me.
yeah. And then synthesizing it and giving it to you in a summarized, easy to understand fashion. I mean, this is the brilliance of using AI in the right way. We're right now close to the end of a first phase of a project where we're basically taking that voice and vision and putting it into software testing tied to Jira. So, and giving it to our customers and giving it to our QA. And, we do everything's automated in our world, but even when it's automated, you still run into issues, right? And so when you're going through and doing smoke testing or having a client review something and they find something, now they're sending you an email. And now you're putting, and maybe you get a couple of these emails from different stakeholders, and now you're looking to see, has this been reported? And it probably was, but it wasn't reported in a way that you find it when you're searching for it in your project management system, right? Or a feature request like that. So now we've got a tool where you just say, hey, this is the project I'm working on, and it has a RAG implementation of that project. And it's watching your screen as you're using it. And I say, hey, I just noticed that this number doesn't look right. And it says, yeah, I can see that. You're on this screen and this is what it should do. And oh, actually, somebody's already reported that bug, but they have it as a low priority. Do you want to keep that? And I go, no, I think it should be a high priority. And now it's okay. I've updated the Jira ticket. It's now high priority. Or it creates a bug or a feature request, or says there's still 6 open tickets for the next build, or whatever you ask it, right? But it can, and then it can grab the screenshot or the video clip and then stick it into your Jira and clip it on, and all the machinations you go through for all that, they go away. And now you've got this personal relationship with the project instead of this highly technical one, which nobody likes. So this is the kind of stuff that kind of excites me. It's
Yeah.
these types of things.
Yeah, we have our Kanban boards, and so we have an agent that automatically goes and picks up the information off the Kanban boards and the Git repos, and then does all of the like weekly summaries that developers used to write.
Right.
Um, things along those lines.
Hmm.
And it can certainly save a lot of time, and then keep people. I think I'm sure a lot of people like who use Jira now could spend a lot of time not in Jira if there was a AI modifying all the tickets and everything like that. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, so what does my team hate doing? They hate when they're finishing, they're checking something in, having to write all the comments around all that.
yeah,
So now that's all automated, right?
mhm,
And that gets all pushed into Jira in a summarized way for the test automation to then run. And it understands the test automation, understands what it's supposed to be running. And these are the types of workflow automation things from the tech stack side
right,
that to me are really game changing. I don't know if they're game changing. They are definitely they take a lot of the misery out of the things that nobody wants to do and makes it a lot more fun to interact with the systems and also to follow procedures and protocols because you're not having to follow them. The system is following them for you.
Yeah. Certainly very exciting, fun stuff on the positive side. I've also, on the dark side, seen some pretty bad things with
Oh
AI.
yeah. Yeah.
Like one example I've seen, sometimes it does pretty good with like the automated Git commits kind of thing, and sometimes it completely misses the intent of the change.
Hmm.
I've also seen someone posted a picture online of it was like it showed like a truck in mud, and like the more it accelerated, it went deeper and deeper into the mud, right? Kind of thing.
Oh,
And
that's
so
actually a really good analogy for when you watch AI start spinning out in the wrong way.
and it was like,
I love that. That's perfect.
yeah, and it was talking about it was like advice to humans, but people were like jumping on with, how it relates to AI, where it's like if you're in a hole, stop digging, kind of thing. And so in your experiences, when have you seen it not go so well? Because I think in my experiences, I almost have these polar extremes where it's like this set of stuff, super helpful. This set of stuff or ways of using it, it goes very poorly. And so I don't know, what's your brain experiences like?
Oh yeah, I mean exactly what you're saying. So
Yeah.
like if you're trying to get it to, let's say, refactor something,
Mm,
uh, depending on the level of sophistication and how many things it touches beyond the immediate function or class or whatever you're working on, right? Or object or component. Um, it, it doesn't recognize maybe the depth of the refactoring it needs to do, the downstream effects it needs to consider, and then it breaks things that were working fine before. It's getting better, like almost on a monthly basis. I see significant
Right.
improvements. A year ago, we used it for this, but we knew that we had to do the inventory ourselves on the downstream effects. Now it seems to be doing this at a pretty decent level. Uh, we still need to see everything it's touched so that we know whether it's considered at all, but it's the confidence level of the team is going up, daily. What the biggest thing is getting the teams to be creative on how to make this all work better instead of just accepting the current state of things. Because there are a lot of things you can do, in terms of MCPs and server rules and
Yeah.
or and things that you can do, and creating a mob GPT approach where you've got all these different agents that are checking each other and cycling through something until they feel like the confident with measuring the confidence factor at each step until you get above a certain point, then the chances is probably exactly what you want. So, but it takes a really smart, lazy programmer to do these things. And I always say the best programmers I've ever worked with are really smart and really lazy.
Yeah.
If they did the
Proactive
same,
laziness is
if they
my
did
term
the
for it.
same thing two times, that was one too many. And now they have to figure out how to abstract that into something they never have to do again.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Totally agree with you.
right.
Yeah, kind of talking about the confidence level going up. I recently started using Claude Sonnet 3.5 with Copilot agentic mode and
Mm.
enabled like full access to the files and it can do like full structural refactorings across multiple files throughout a project and it I've been more successful than not successful now,
Yeah.
which is quite impressive. And
There is that tipping point, right?
yeah, like it
Right.
feels like we're right there because my experience over the last few days and experimenting with these tools has been really quite amazing. Is there like a specific tool chain that you're referring to or looking into right now, or is there um, you
Yeah,
know,
there are many of them,
yeah,
unfortunately, because they're all shifting so quickly. I mean, the project that I just told you about is using Claude, OpenAI, and Gemini.
right,
So, it's all of them.
yeah,
And then all of the infrastructure support products in between them. For the Vision, the Jira, um, uh, and what I'm really looking forward to is where we have dynamic assembly of these things based on the current context. I don't see that yet. What I'm seeing is a plethora of these agent platforms where you can create agents and then you can snap agents together and it makes it easier to do, but they're all doing kind of the same thing. Uh, uh, some are agentic flow for focused, others are just independent agent focused, but I don't see anything yet saying, hey, I've got these three agents and I've got this problem, so I'm going to dynamically configure these to solve that with the understanding that this problem will change
mhm,
as context shifts, and then I'll reconfigure it dynamically. That's what I mean by the idea of agents. And then maybe I'm going to even adjust how that agent operates in real time because it's no longer really doing exactly what I needed. It's not thinking in the right context anymore, for the way the problem has shifted.
yeah,
yeah, yeah. And I think that's one thing I've been noticing lately. I am severely undereducated on what all this agentic stuff means. So you'll have to both of you probably have to correct me here, but been in a mob where people are using it, where it's you give it a high level task, and it's almost like it'll do a bunch of stuff and kind of check itself as it goes, and then narrate as it's going along. And sometimes that goes well, and sometimes it's kind of like doing the deeper and deeper into the pit kind of thing because in the mode I was using it before, kind of like for example, you be in like a TDD loop and it helps you with one part of it, and then you have
Mhm.
fast feedback and you can kind of check and test everything it comes up with, either on the test side or product side. What I've noticed is when it has these high level tasks and just keeps going and going and going, if it will dig itself into the mud very, very quickly,
Yeah,
where it's
right.
like 20%, because even when it's super
Right. I'm
useful, it
getting
can be
deeper,
like
so spin the
20%
wheels
wrong.
faster. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
just like 20% wrong times 20% wrong times 20% wrong, and it's running for 30 minutes. And after a while, that's a whole lot of wrong, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you can't just do whatever with AI and it's going to go great. It almost is like Google foo. You know what I mean? Like how you had to be good at Google to be good with AI.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
there's like you have to like learn the skills to use it well. Um,
Yeah.
have
Well,
you
that,
encountered this kind of when it
oh, yeah. Oh,
loses
yeah.
touch of reality? And how do you handle that problem? Like
So
what's your
a really good example of this in a
uh
product is any of the builder tools, Lovable, Replit, Bolt, any of these tools. If
mm,
you go back 6 months ago with these tools, you could build simple things with them pretty efficiently and effectively, then they
hmm
would run fine, right? I don't know, they're supposedly on their own scalable servers, but they certainly weren't building microservices or any kind of infrastructure architecture that mattered. But for a prototype, they were perfectly fine as long as the business rules and requirements were pretty simple. As soon as you started to get into a little bit more sophisticated relational data, and then they would start to break and get confused and even destroy code that was working that it wrote itself earlier, right? And it was pretty frustrating trying to manage and control it. If you look at like Replit is a good example. Now fast forward 6 months, you look at it today, and it's much smarter. It's not perfect, but it's a lot smarter. It gets into loops, and it realizes it's in a loop and says, "Oh, let me stop and rethink this whole problem." You can see it do that. It'll say, "I need to rethink this. Okay, I'm going to refactor this, or start and come up with a new, simpler approach." And then that fails, and then it does it another time. That simpler approach didn't work. I see the problem. And then it actually does usually resolve itself and then moves on correctly. And it doesn't destroy everything it did previously, not like it did before, right? Still not architecting systems the way that you would ideally want them to, unless that's the instructions you give it to do. And then you're managing the architecture as part of your prompting, right? I'm not, I don't have any confidence in that area, not quite yet, but I don't think we're far from that. But that's an example of where it just spins out, right? And it would spin out and like wipe out a section of my program, of the screens and the functionality, and rebuild it, and it looks terrible and it functions wrong. And it's like, okay, go back to the original version, but you can't find it now. I mean, that's how it was 6 months ago, right? That was the
mhm.
spinning the tires into the mud.
Yeah. I had this experience today, and I was kind of pushing my current tool chain as hard as I could because I was kind of expecting it to spin out like that, but it actually corrected itself. So I went like 4 or 5 prompts deep, and it was to the point where uh, it had many errors. And then by the time the final error was corrected, the whole system worked the way I had originally prompted it to. And so, uh, I think with the new ability for agentic systems
Right.
to run the tests and then read the test output and then write more tests and then read the test output, it actually goes through that loop of iteration and then you land on something. And then yesterday I was able to essentially give a series of copilot instructions on how to create approval tests, and properly create them. And I heard a lot of, at previous conferences and stuff, I heard that approval testing was very difficult, but for agentic systems because they want to go in and modify the approved files. But given the instructions I've had and the context, it was able to kind of write and operate with those tests, which was pretty neat. So, yeah, something feels different like within the last
Mhm.
month than it ever
Yeah.
has. And so that's been pretty interesting.
Um, I've been seeing a lot of posts about prompt engineering being dead. Uh, so I'm curious what you think of that. Let me just end the question right there.
Yeah, yeah, Austin, I don't know if you want to go first on that. I can.
Yeah, and I have very limited experience, but I think my before I pass it to you, Chris, my prior thoughts kind of probably exposed that I definitely think prompt engineering is alive and well, at least with the tools I'm using.
Yeah.
Because if you don't prompt well, it can go very poorly. And if you don't use it in a
Right.
very specific way, to me, it's kind of like having a new person on the team and knowing what they're good at and what they're not good at, and what triggers them to do bad things and what triggers them to do good things for the team.
Right.
And just learning how to work well with this other person, right? And so it's almost kind of like saying, uh, needing to work well with others doesn't matter anymore in a team. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, no, well, with AI, you have to know how to its personality and how to interact with it well. So my experience is definitely not dead, but I'm open to be corrected otherwise. What are your
No,
thoughts,
I
Chris?
agree with you too.
Oh,
Chris, what do you
okay.
think? What do you
Yeah.
think, Chris?
Yeah, I'll just say that the skills in prompt engineering are really turning into context files for these agentic systems. And so I think all the skills are transferable. So I think prompting is going to become less important uh, and creating good context files for things like a cursor or like agentic copilot or any of those others where like right now, whenever I go into a project, and this is kind of like new as of the last couple of weeks, is in Visual Studio Code, you can bring up the command pilot with F1. So I just do F1 and then I just type instruction file. It will read the contents of the project and create a boilerplate, essentially context file that the agent will use from then on. So now when I'm prompting, I'm putting a lot less effort into prompting. And so I think that your prompt engineering becomes context authoring.
Hmm.
And so I do think that it's fading, but when people say it's dead, it's not really dead. It's just that the place at which you capture that context is shifting.
Hmm.
And where I think people are being sensationalists saying like, "Oh, don't use AI anymore." But also, MSNBC just had like a YouTube video I saw that was like, companies are realizing that they're not getting the gains from AI generation that they thought they would be. Um, and it's funny that they released that video right now because it does feel like the value proposition has shifted dramatically in the last few weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts, David, on this
Yeah.
topic? Yeah.
I guess it's the same kind of thing. It's like all prompt engineering is creating a context. Um,
Yeah.
that's all it is. And now we're not doing it all from a narrative, but
Right.
we're using other things to create that narrative, like feeding in an existing Git library to create
Right.
that context and having it produce a context for you. But it's producing a prompt, is what it's doing.
Hmm.
It was interesting. I heard somebody talk about um, uh, the evolution of coding from machine language to abstracted languages, right, to English.
Right.
So, which is where we are now. All of a sudden, English is the new coding language.
Right.
Uh, it's not quite there yet, but it's definitely headed in that direction.
Yeah.
Uh, the problem is most people are really lousy at speaking and writing English. So how on earth are they going to be able to guide AI to give them what they want
Right.
unless AI is just so intuitive that it understands what they're trying to say, even though they didn't say it, right?
Yeah. I think the
So,
people that have worked on their vocabulary are going to have the best time with this. And so for those people that spent the time learning the computer science concepts or the names and the libraries that they're using or the names of the design patterns, right? So like using a design pattern in code, when navigating in a mob, for example, I'm going to say, hey, use this design pattern, right? If people in the mob know that word, then that translates into hundreds of lines of code. It's the same thing for an AI system. It's like, hey, use a strategy pattern to operate, with different systems for this like same set of requirements over those systems. And that will imply a lot that the agent will know. And so certainly people with a large vocabulary will have the easiest time getting what they want out of these systems, I think.
Yeah. And also understanding the idea of how you elaborate a context in a very structured, understandable way for an AI system to have clarity on what it's producing.
Yeah.
Um, build me an app like Uber. That's not going to get you what you want, right?
Right.
You need a little more detail than that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll not go too long on this tangent, but it's just kind of funny that I'm kind of a classical education nerd, but the thing that was valuable hundreds of years ago and thousands of years ago will still be valuable in thinking well, speaking well, and writing well in the AI age because those are the skills needed to work well with AI. And
Yeah.
I think so. I know we might spend the whole time on AI if that's all right with you, because I just have so
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
questions here. But one is uh, I'm having trouble with the bigger batch styles of AI. This agentic it appears to be because to me it feels like I'm back 15 years ago in a waterfall department where something is done, outside the company or this group has done it, and then this giant batch gets thrown over the wall. And I'm expected to like inspect all of it, like either read all of it and understand all of it, like all this code change, or kind of spot check a few things and be like, looks good, approve, change that. So, when AI makes this huge batch, I don't know what to do with that. At the moment I don't use it because I'm just like, I like small feedback loops where I can check every little thing it's doing. To me, it feels like I'm doing a blind leap. Just I hope you're right. You know what I mean? Kind of mode. Um, do you
Okay.
do
I
kind of
think
big batch AI, or how do you handle it? How do you escape the quandary I'm in?
well, I think of it as concentric circles or as concentric spheres, right?
Hmm.
And you're willing to step at the next level of the next layer based on your confidence of the
Hmm.
layer that you're on, where the confidence factor keeps increasing, where you're relaxing about that. Now you start to test the layer beyond it. If the layer is a massive step and it's this big batch and your confidence of where you are right now is only like at 50%, then I would feel exactly
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like you feel. So, but the way you get there is constantly testing and figuring out how to adjust it so
Gotcha.
your confidence level gets really high. And we're using AI to build the automated test, but we are validating that based on the summaries AI is giving in terms of what the test cases are, and then we do a visual perusal of that. So then when we create something, if that test fails, now either the test case was bad or the change that it made was bad. But right, and so there's a feedback system that we're kind of creating in there. And of course, code quality, we have automated testing around code quality, and then we have visual inspection. And the visual inspection goes down as our confidence of the automation goes up. It's like everything else. I want that automation confidence to increase quickly.
Mm.
I want the automation to increase quickly, but I don't care about that if our confidence doesn't increase. So how do we get creative about making our confidence higher and higher so that we can push the envelope and accelerate what we're doing? I want to see a 10x improvement from where we are today. and we're probably 5x where we were a year ago, or a year and a half ago. But I really think it should be much faster than that. No reason why, if it's done right and get the right feedback system and built into your right. So we always talk about being exceptional in terms of procedures and protocols and consistency and quality. It's one of our hallmarks. But to do that, that means that there's all these checks in place, that we've put automation in place to take the burden off of the team to do all this. And to the degree that we can, but the confidence factor has to be there. So when we deliver something, our clients say, these guys are great. They're like, I'm confident that they're going to deliver something of quality. I'm confident that their estimates are accurate, that that the cost is going to be correct, that if there's something wrong with our requirements, then we're going to get a lot of detailed analysis and documentation so that we know that there's an expanded scope and we can make decisions at a very granular level. So, right, but to do that, you have to have the culture, and then you have to create systems so that your team doesn't hate you, right, and automation, because you want them to think this is a cool place to work because I'm building better stuff, I'm doing it faster, I get to be more free, and we have all these really happy customers. So this is a really difficult, needle to thread, right? And this is what we've been doing for a long time. So now we're trying to really push the envelope with AI in this context of quality and compliance, and because we have a lot of compliance requirements in law enforcement and healthcare and things like that. So we can't screw it up. So I don't know how the things I'm saying either resonate or feel contradictory to what your experiences are.
Yeah. I'm curious to your thoughts too, Chris, but I think kind of what I take away from that is it's almost kind of, again, taking the analogy of treating AI like a person. If someone is really good with a subset of smaller tasks, then I have high confidence in that. Like the trust is higher, right? If I give
Yeah,
them a bigger task and I see them kind of falling over themselves, right? Then it's kind of like, okay, maybe you're not ready for that, but that doesn't mean I don't try that again. And I find ways to give it a bigger task and then find
exactly.
ways to check it. And then maybe someday the AI I'm using grows into the scope where I can give it a higher level task and have higher confidence. For me, it doesn't seem to be there yet, but I like the approach you're talking about, where it's just like, it's like, do you think, to kind of the trust but verify, and keep doing that until it grows into the place where I can trust it at that high of a level. I don't know. What do y'all think?
And how do you de-risk it? The testing. That's kind of what I was getting at, right?
Yeah,
Because
right.
we
Yeah,
don't want to create all this risk. What we want
yeah.
to do is figure out ways of de-risking the pushing the envelope. So we can push the envelope with a very low risk because we have systems in place that validate whether or not that envelope we're meeting our objectives by pushing the envelope, or we have to step back, and how, like, to take that
Yeah, nice.
person
Yeah.
who's not good at the bigger task, what training we have to give, and feel like that can be monitored while they're developing that skill. There's a lot of very ambiguous stuff we're talking about, but there's real world scenarios, um, that we try to put in place to make this happen really effectively.
Yeah, Austin, I'll just ask you, how much do you go in and verify the assembly when you compile your code,
Exactly.
right?
That's
Or how,
right.
or do you verify that the binary is correct once the assembly is compiled?
Yeah. That every night I print out all the ones and zeros of the code I generated and I read it until I fall asleep to make
Yeah,
sure it was
And
correct.
how
Yeah.
scary is that when all of a sudden the compile isn't working right, right? And all of a sudden you're like, oh God, what do I do? You don't even
yeah,
know anymore,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
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 I think that from a confidence standpoint, I think there is like a time to lean into it and a time to be skeptical, right? And so I am personally trying to lean into it more, and think of ways to more effectively lose control quickly. And and then see where that goes. But I would almost think of it as like coaching a more junior developer. So your context file for the agent in a Agentic system, you would any feedback you had for it, you'd make sure it ends up back in that file. And you can actually in Copilot, you can say like, what did you learn from this interaction? Go ahead and add it to the context file, and it will like write down what it learned so that it can use in the next iteration. And so I think you can use like traditional coaching techniques to coach up your agent. Um, and they should be fairly effective. One thing is like the tooling might lose the context, and so uh, um, Amy Dredge had told me recently to include a smiley face emoji, or tell the agent to include a smiley face emoji at the end of your at the end of all of our interactions, and then that way you can verify that the context was always used in the interaction because you always see the smiley face emoji at the end. And that has been very effective because it regularly reminds me to also give the agent feedback and continue adding to the context file. That helps a lot.
And weirdly, if you're nice to the agent and you give it compliments about it did that right and whatever, it works better.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, yeah, that feels almost human-like, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and if and when AI takes over the world, it will remember that you were nice to it. Yeah,
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, we want to be in that list, right? The
yeah,
the
right,
good list.
exactly.
Yeah. I'll see my whole neighborhood destroyed, but my house will still be left, It'll
Yeah,
be like a
Right, exactly.
Rahab situation. I'll be like, "Oh, thankfully I was nice to
There'll
my
be a
neighbor."
basket of fruit at your front door. Right.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. We are coming up somewhat on time, David, but did you have any final thoughts, monologues, or anything you like to plug or share before we close?
Well, I mean, just in this whole conversation, we don't really have any option about where things are headed at this point.
Mm,
I had so many conversations last night around this where people were saying, yeah, but what about the moral and ethical implications, like
mm,
using AI to help you recruit, do much more detailed recruiting, taking if you're like, this was a recruiter who does IT recruiting for some top firms in San Diego. And I said, look, you can say all the moral and ethical you want, but he said, and he was saying, well, by the time AI takes over, I just hope I'm retired by then. I said, are you planning on retiring this year or next year? Right.
Yeah.
Because if you're not like trying to figure out how to put your arms around this, it's just going to kind of sweep you away. And we're already seeing a lot of that.
Mm.
Uh, uh, People that are just worried about what are they going to do? Their jobs are shifting, or the need for their job is shifting. So how do they create new value with the experience that they have um, uh, without becoming obsolete? And that's where I see our world going, and kind of getting there quickly. So I just feel like everybody should be doing everything they can to immerse themselves in how to provide value leveraging AI.
mm.
And I constant on a daily basis, so I try to imbibe my team with that kind of culture and feeling. So the shameless plug, we're a custom software development shop. We do a lot with workflow automation and agents, and we work with a lot of startups as well as larger companies. My company's Techies, TEKYZ.com. Um, if you've made it this far to the end of the show, you can email me directly at david@tekyz.com. And I've got a new podcast coming out called Scaling Smarter.
Nice, nice. Yeah, well, we'll put that in the show notes, and I'm just noting that right now. And awesome. Well, thank you so much, David. It's been really fun to talk about AI and agents and all this kind of fun stuff and how to be on the good list of AI, how to use it well.
You're right.
And
Good list.
yeah, and use it effectively, right? Not just kind of blindly use it. and dig yourself into the mud. And yeah, it's really expanded my horizons talking with you about this and learning from you and Chris. So thank you very much for joining with us and sharing with us and with our audience. And to our audience, please join the conversation. Comment on YouTube, reach out on LinkedIn or X or wherever else you can find us. And what are your thoughts? What have been your experiences lately with, smaller batch AI, large batch AI, all the AI buzzwords, prompt engineering, all that? What are your thoughts and opinions? We love to hear it. And until next time, have a good one, everybody. Adios. See ya.